Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, March 11th, 2024, and the time now is 6 p.m., and I will call to order this regular meeting of the Town of Mead Board of Trustees. In accordance with the town's remote participation and remote meeting policy adopted by the Board of Trustees on March 13th, 2023 by resolution number 21-R-2023, remote participation will be allowed. The meeting link has been provided on the town's website and designated posting place 24 hours prior to this meeting. I'd like to remind everyone present, both in person and virtually, of our town's general guidelines for public comments at open meetings. The guidelines are available online and on the entry table. There are 2 public comment opportunities on the agenda for persons in attendance at Town Hall to address the board. The first public comment opportunity is limited to items on the agenda, and the second public comment opportunity allows any subject, whether it is on the agenda or not, to be addressed. Mary, roll call, please.
Mayor Whitlow.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cartwright.
Here.
Trustee Adams.
Here.
Trustee Broadhead.
Here.
Trustee Harris. Trustee Parr.
Here.
Trustee Schranz.
Here.
Mayor Whitlow, today is Monday, March 11th, 2024, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mary. As we celebrate some of our police officers tonight, let's also take a brief moment of silence to remember those officers lost in the line of duty. Thank you very much for your time, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is review and approve agenda. Are there any is there a motion to approve the agenda as is?
I move to approve the agenda as is. Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Parr.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Trustee Broadhead.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cartwright.
Yes.
Trustee Schranz.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. We have an agenda for this evening. Next is our staff report by our town manager. Helen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. You have my report. I did want to add a couple of items. Many of you probably noticed they did complete the mast arm installation at County Road 7 and 66. That's the dangerous thing when you do a traffic signal or hanging those mast arms out. So that work is done. I don't anticipate any major closures now. Now they're over there working on wiring, and they'll switch out the new signals. They're all bagged right now. So that's really nice. It's a really nice project, and that's starting to come to an end. I also wanted to mention that Erica has been working with CDOT to perform a speed limit study on 66, basically from I-25 east to probably County Road 13. We've had some complaints about noise, and that kind of worked its way into, if you lowered the speed limit, the noise would go down. But I think from our angle, it's also a significant safety issue. As you're seeing now, we're getting more signals, we're getting more traffic, more intrusions into 66. So my bet is they'll come back with some sort of speed reduction. Because as you know, it's 60 miles an hour through that entire section over there on the east side. So, but we'll find out more of that. Erica's working collaboratively with CDOT on that project. And that's all my updates, and I can answer any questions on my report.
Questions or comments for Helen? Can I ask a question about the study? Will it go beyond County Road 13 to the dairy or past Grandview at all?
No, it doesn't go past 13. But it does actually go on the west side of I-25 a little bit. I extended it so that it would
Okay.
include that signal at the Quick Trip
Okay.
location.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Helen. All right. Next is our informational items for this evening. We have three of them. Our first one is our Police Life Saving Awards, and this will be introduced and discussed by our Chief of Police, Brett Newmakes.
Thank you, Mayor, Board of Trustees, Town Manager and staff, department members and family members. Thanks for being here. Appreciate that. It's an honor to be up here tonight and recognize some very outstanding work by our officers. The mission of the Mead Police Department is to provide excellent service to Mead community, make it a safer place to live and work. Saving a person's life is the epitome of that mission. The Life Saving Award may be given to an employee that performs an act that saves the life of another person under circumstances that are not life-threatening to the employee. We are here tonight to recognize 3 officers for their collaborative efforts to save a life. Responding to a person in crisis can be a very stressful and demanding task. Officers have to remain calm when their mind is telling them to scream and their body is telling them to just grab the person, both of which can have the exact opposite result that we are striving for. These officers work together to protect the individual, deploy the very best de-escalation tactics, and patiently work for a safe and successful resolution to the crisis. On the afternoon of December 7th, numerous callers reported an individual sitting on the edge of the Highway 66 overpass, feet dangling over I-25, and appeared like he was thinking about jumping. Officers Daniel Aguirre, Sam Hansen, and Lee Patton responded. Officer Patton contacted the person on the edge of the bridge, quickly talked him into stepping back over the railing and moving off the side where it was safe. Can we play the video? I have a short clip. This is Officer Patton's body-worn camera video from the incident. You can't hear this, but as he's approaching, he's making contact with the person, asking him if it's okay if he approaches, sits down next to him, and quickly establishes a rapport. He's asking him if he's okay, what's going on today. The other officers are watching, making sure traffic doesn't come too close. And the individuals, it says he'll come over the side of the railing, so they just assist him over the side of the railing, make sure that he doesn't slip in that process. And they walk him off to the side of the bridge where it's safer to talk. As you know, those bridges are kind of narrow. There's not a lot of room to stand there. Officers Aguirre and Hansen then spoke with the man about what was bothering him and connected him with a co-responder. Officers determined that the man was in need of a mental health evaluation, and the co-responder transported him to Longspeak Hospital for evaluation and treatment. Officers Patton, Aguirre, and Hansen acted quickly and with compassion in order to keep this person from jumping off the bridge. They empathized with the subject, which appeared to greatly increase his cooperation. The officers exhibited adherence to the mission of the Mead Police Department by keeping this subject safe and providing excellent service. They are to be commended for their actions and a job well done. In recognition of your efforts to save this person's life, I'm awarding each of you the Mead Police Department Life Saving Award. I'd like Officers Patton, Hansen, and Aguirre to come forward, please. And if the mayor would join me, she has something for them as well.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees, thank you very much for your courage, your sacrifice, and your service to this town. We appreciate it very much. And to all officers here and everywhere, thank you all for your time and your service and your sacrifice to all the communities that you serve. So thank you. One more round of applause for all of these gentlemen. And if I had cake, I'd tell you to go have some cake. I know we have cake. Anyway, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Right, next on to our second informational item for this evening is our police survey results, and this will be presented by Ms. Kristen Knoll from Slate Communications. Ma'am, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. Well, Mayor and members of the board, I am Kristen Knoll and I am with Slate Communications. We provide marketing and public relations support to local governments across the state. And it's my pleasure to present to you the results of the survey that we conducted about a month or so ago. I have a few slides here that I wanted to share. So this is a little bit broader campaign than just the survey. We've been conducting research and meeting with staff and board members. Many of you were in attendance in December when we came to present as part of your December all-day retreat. And we've been working to get more information about the services of the police department and get an understanding of the sentiment in town. The next phase of the plan is really to work on messaging and some public engagement development. You'll see that there's an asterisk next to that phase 2 title. That's where we are today. So I'm going to share a little bit of information of where we're headed and kind of a look back on the survey results and what we heard. The third phase is developing a communications plan a little bit broader than what we've done so far. And then that includes implementing some tools and tactics to share more information with the community. So through our conversations with many of you and members of staff, we've heard that the community really supports the police here in Mead. We also know and have heard that school resource officers and neighborhood patrols are of a really high priority, and that community policing initiatives, including being out in the community and connecting with residents, are appreciated and well received. We've also heard from staff that there's this internal understanding that there's an increased demand on cost, and the general fund is supporting the services of the police department. So to put some things in context, you all know this, but I also wanted to share that the police department has a lot of work to do. Their service area is the town boundary. So that's what you see here on this map. And to put some of the data into perspective, I included some stats here that this includes patrolling over 125 road miles. Your town is around 13 square miles. You have over 2,300 housing units, which includes over 6,600 residents, and the police department oversees patrol on both I-25 and Colorado 66 within your town. So that's a lot of area to cover. Now getting into the survey, I wanted to share a little bit of information on the survey methodology and set the groundwork for what we're about to talk about next. So this was not a statistically valid survey. This was really an opportunity to get a pulse from the community and feedback on their sentiment of the police department in town. So this was an online survey that was open for about 2.5 weeks. We did a really large push to get it out into the community as much as possible. This included a blurb in the annual report that was distributed to every household. And we also did a separate direct mail postcard specifically promoting the survey. And then we used the town's typical channels for communication, both on the website, in your monthly newsletter, and on social media. So the purpose of the survey really was to ask about residents' willingness to support additional police resources in the community. This was our kind of initial introduction for the survey. And we had 5 open-ended questions, or 5 yes/no questions and 1 open-ended question. And I'll share the results here. So the first question was, knowing that the school district is planning to build a new school in Mead, would you support additional funding to have a dedicated school resource officer at every school? We know that current funding supports 2 SROs in 3 Mead schools. So as you can see, we had 156 survey respondents. These are valid survey responses and is a small sample size for your community, but it does give us a sense of what the community is thinking. So we had 106 yeses and 50 nos. About 68% of the respondents said that they are in support of additional funding here. You'll start to see a theme. The support is similar across all of the questions, but vary just slightly. So the second question was, current staffing includes 1 officer on patrol per shift. Would you support adding more officers per shift to help ensure patrol coverage across the entire town, including local neighborhoods? So we had 108 yeses and 48 nos for a total of about 69% of the respondents. Our third question garnered the most support out of all of the questions. And we asked, do you support community policing strategies that enhance community connections and build relationships with residents? This includes visibility at schools and community gatherings, hosting the annual Citizens Police Academy, and police ride-alongs. 81% of respondents said yes to this question. Then we asked about police facilities. The police do not have dedicated space for training or evidence storage or interview rooms currently. Do you support a better local police facility to improve police services in Mead? We had 69% say yes. That was 107 responses. And our final yes/no question was, would you consider a sales tax increase that dedicates funds that can only be used for police services to support school resource officers, patrol officers, equipment, and facilities? So 98 folks said yes to this question as well. Our final and open-ended question was an optional response question. So we did not receive 156 responses, but we did receive quite a few. I would say, probably 80 or so, fill in the blank sort of answers. And this is obviously just a very short and small sampling of some of the responses we've seen. But I think it's a good small sample of what we've heard, that some folks are saying that as Mead grows, it makes sense for the police force to grow also. We definitely heard that there are concerns about, increasing taxes or having to pay more for this police services. But many folks, as you can see here, also said that they are strongly in support of police operations. So what does this mean and what are next steps? What we heard is that there is strong community support for the Mead Police Department. Those that took the time to take the survey did show support for the police department. But what we also found is that education, is also necessary for the community to better understand why additional resources are needed. So what does that mean for next steps? As part of a larger police engagement and communication campaign, I think it's really important to look at some tools and implementation in educating the community about the work that the police department does. So a lot of the things you see up here are things that you already do. It's really having a broad outreach effort, including communication in print, electronically. Thank you. Engaging with stakeholders face to face, that's at community events, and developing PowerPoint presentations that can be shared among community organizations, and providing online communication through some short videos that are educational as well. So like I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, we're kind of moving through into the second phase of this public engagement process. We've wrapped up or nearly wrapped up with phase one, this research phase, and moving into messaging and public engagement development. That includes more conversations with staff and doing a little bit more research and taking the responses, especially those open-ended responses from the survey, and developing key messages and thinking about whether a ballot initiative is the right direction. And then we also want to communicate the results of the survey. We appreciate that many residents took the time to take the survey, and we want to share the results here, but also in other avenues as well. Continuing through our timeline, the third phase includes strategic communications plan. So really developing, what does this plan look like, and coordinating with a social media strategy and direct mail pieces, and coordinating with the town's event calendar and the town board's decision calendar as well. So we'll build out a larger communications plan and identify specifically what some of those tools might be that I mentioned in a previous slide. And then the final phase of this process is the actual implementation. So creating those things that you will see out and about in the community. And this all would take place through August. And at that point, if the board makes a decision to put a question on the ballot, that's when a citizen-led campaign would take over, and we, as the town, would take a step back and put it in the hands of the residents. So with that, I will conclude my presentation and open it up for board discussion and any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments? Tricia, welcome.
Well, I mean, I noticed on one of the comment, on a couple of the comments, it was, well, one was, why can't we go back to Weld County Sheriff's Office again? Probably wouldn't hurt to reiterate one more time why we left, why that happened, and that we cannot go back. It just boggles my mind that people still think that. But, I think that we need to really, and I know we've talked to the chief about getting actual numbers. I think one of the things that we tend to overlook is that people aren't stupid. They can look, we can tell them, look, here's what this is taking up of our general fund right now. Here's what it's going to take up in 5 years. And we know that in 5 years, it's going to be eating like what, half of our general fund. I mean, it's going to be utterly ridiculous, right? We know that. But I think we need to be really clear with people with actual numbers and lay it out there. Don't leave anything to question that, well, we'll be okay in 3 years. What, how much can it possibly grow in 3 years? Or when they're saying, well, we already give them 2 million, what are they spending it on? Well, there's where we need to have real concrete numbers to put out there. I really think we need to just have numbers, and lay it all out for them.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you very much for their time tonight.
Yes, you are
We
welcome.
appreciate all what you do for us.
You're welcome. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me, and
Thanks.
have a good evening.
All right. Thanks. All right. Our final informational item tonight will be the 2024 Spring Cleanup Days and will be introduced by our Public Information Officer, Community Engagement Director, Lorelei Nelson. Ma'am, you have the floor. Thank you.
I just want to do a quick recap of cleanup days. It is going to be here before we know it. We had a postcard go out with all of our events and letting folks know about the changes of cleanup days. So I want a quick review. So prior to 2024, we offered this twice a year in spring and fall. Residents were allowed one load of household trash and unlimited yard waste at no cost. These were conducted typically on Friday from 8 to 4 and then Saturday from 8 to noon. That was held at the Public Works facilities, and we had limited acceptable items. The annual costs were about $62,000. That was between labor, equipment that we had to rent, in addition to dumpster services. Discussions we had prior to the change was the uptick in commercial and non-resident usage. A significant amount of unapproved items and excessive trips, meaning people were going repeatedly and disposing of waste that they shouldn't have been doing. Last year, we ran into a lot of weather-related issues, particularly at the dry lakes where it happens. The amount of rain that we got last year, we were in a tricky situation of not knowing in 24 hours if we were going to be able to host the event at all. And another issue is the environmental permitting regulations that we're getting into in regards to waste collection. Some of the annual concerns and objections that we had from residents were the restrictions on our waste. We wouldn't accept soil, concrete, mattresses. And another big objection was our limited hours of operation. So not just the hours from 8 to 4 and 8 to noon, but also it's a day and a half. So 3 days total, and a lot of frustration that we weren't being open enough to the folks that are working and had lives during the Friday, Saturday. So with that, we started looking at alternatives and looking at what other communities were doing. We ended up with Front Range Landfill. Frederick and Dacono and Longmont use Front Range. They have a significant expanded acceptable waste list. And they also have their operating hours, which are far more than the day and a half that we could provide, which is Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. The board indicated they wanted 2 sessions of this, so we have that scheduled for 2 weeks in May and October. We are going with a voucher and verification system because of the issues with commercial and non-residents. Folks that are going to participate will need to verify that they are Town of Mead residents and that they live here. There is a 1 load, 1 ton limit, and that 1 load, 1 ton limit, based on Dacono, they do it once annually. There's about $25,000 because we're doing it twice. So that puts us to about we've budgeted $45,000 based on what we think that the usage is going to be. And in conjunction with this, like the other communities, we're also doing a food drive for the Weld Food Bank. And coincidentally, I don't know if you guys saw, there was a Greeley Tribune article on the Weld County mobile food pantry that visits Mead. And they had stated that there's been an 85% increase in Mead participants for their single location in Mead. So good timing in this, and that we're able to contribute to that. I'm open for questions, comments, and concerns.
Thank you very much. Lola, I just wanted to, before we open it up, I did some research along the way. I know we've been working on this for more than 6 months, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that there are other towns that have in-house equipment and facilities to do this and things, Loveland, Johnstown, Longmont, the other big ones around us, Fort Collins, they have all their in-house equipment. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that we don't have that capability to do that kind of work here, you know. And I did see a couple posts on the weekend about why can't we just have an open place where people could just go put their tree limbs in and things like that. So maybe you can address that, and then I'll open it up for questions or comments if there's any. Maybe Erica can answer that. If there was some posts on the weekend over social media, why can't we just open up the dried area where we have it typically and just people just dump their tree limbs in there Monday through Friday, since we already have people on staff?
So I will chime in and then Erica can chime in
Okay.
behind me if I don't cover everything. So one of the biggest issues with yard waste and accepting yard waste is that we're not just getting the beautiful branches. Most of that is trash, debris, weeds, things that shouldn't be mulched and reused because of pesticides and trash all mixed up in that. As far as where we had it before, I believe that it's full of other equipment that Public Works is using. And you are right in the fact that we are not set up for taking waste. Every single item that we used previously had been rented. And then we had to work with folks to take that waste. Anything you would like to add?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open it up to questions and concerns. Herman.
Lorelei, you mentioned that looks like about $45,000 for us for the year. Is that a flat rate kind of a charge, or is that per household rate?
So it is a flat rate from, it is a per voucher redemption from Front Range. And that's what we're estimating to get based on the loads that we've done before, the single load limit and what other communities are seeing.
Okay, so do we know in the past what kind of attendance we get to this event?
It varies significantly. And there's no way to decipher the loads of regular household trash and yard waste. So it's just it's in a single amount. So we would get anywhere between 200 and 600, but there's no way to tell you there was 200 loads of household trash and 600 loads of yard waste.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get to is, if we have 400 people attend a normal one of our old ones, and if that same 400 people now attend this, that's 400 vouchers out of 2,300 households. So what I'm hearing you tell me is that 400 vouchers could equate to about $45,000. Okay, so that's if you did the math, 400 into 45, that's a lot of money per household.
It is, but we anticipate the load usage to go down because people are not able to bring in multiple loads. So our budget was based on what Dacono is seeing and what we're expecting.
And that was twice a year. So if
Yeah,
you double
yeah,
that,
yeah.
it'd be
Well,
800
that's the
loads.
45,000. Yeah, you're right. Okay. We'll see what the numbers are next year.
Chris.
So I kind of looked at this as a business proposition,
Mm.
that if somebody rented a large truck and offered to take multiple people's loads, would they be open to accepting multiple vouchers for, say, a 5-ton load?
Not the way that we have it set up with Front Range. So it is a 1 ton, 1 load limit unless you have another voucher.
So that if somebody came with 5 vouchers and 5 tons on a truck, would that be acceptable?
Yes,
Okay,
Did you say yes?
yes, with 5 vouchers.
yes, okay, that's all.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Trustee Parr.
I just think we really need to make sure we're putting out an education aspect for it, because a lot of people are just suddenly upset that we're moving it down to the landfill, but explaining our reason why we're saving us money in theory, and we're also saving our property with the environmental aspects. I think we need to make sure that that is very publicly known. I think, yeah, they're gonna constantly be upset over the tree and limb stuff, but I think the fact that they can take any trash down there, they might be a little more open-minded. Because that's what started, like Colleen said, there were a lot of posts online and I got cornered by a couple neighbors that were just upset. And once I explained that we're saving money, the environment aspects, and they can take whatever they want, they suddenly were like, oh, okay, well, that's better. I just think we need to make sure we're pushing that education, even if it's just as simple as social media posts, to just say, look, this is the difference. I think they'd be a lot more, we wouldn't see quite as many angry people. Because for me, I'm like an entire week to possibilities to go down and take a load is a much better prospect, because my Fridays and Saturdays are swamped. But if I can go down on Wednesday afternoon, that's a lot better.
Thank you. Anything else? Tricia?
I 100% agree with Chris. I felt like in the blurb that you put out, I mean, you talked about what the benefits were, but honestly, most people weren't complaining about the things that you guys were saying were benefits of changing this. Yeah, there were probably some, but the majority of people were not complaining about having to only drive one frickin' mile out of town and drop their stuff off and having multiple yard waste loads and all of that kind of stuff. That's not what people were most people were complaining about. And that's kind of what you made it sound like. Look at these benefits. And they're like, how does that benefit me? It doesn't benefit me at all. I wasn't complaining about that. That wasn't a problem for me. I really, really think that you guys missed the boat on putting out there, look, here's our cost savings and here's why we're doing this. It's not just to simply now inconvenience everyone in the entire town. There's a reason for it. There's an environmental impact. We've got the permits are a problem. The yard waste, people think that they can take their yard waste there and then we just mulch it up and can put it around town. You get people that, and I'm one of them. I have taken my goat head weeds there. I sure as hell don't want that mulched and then be putting it on anyone's property, my own or the town's or anyone else's. We get way too many weeds out there. Again, we need to almost over-explain this crap when we're making a change that is going to be very upsetting to a lot of people. And I felt like we really didn't. We very minimally said, oh, here's what this, and everybody exploded over it because they didn't see the benefits. All they saw was the sudden now major inconvenience of having to take it down that far. So I agree with Chris. We got to reiterate what the reasons were. And money savings is part of it. I mean, where's cost benefit analysis? Look, we're saving probably $15,000 of your money to do it this way. And go more in depth as to what the reasons were. I mean, the environmental impact, that's a big one, having to get permits for it and that becoming more and more complicated. People are going to be like, oh, all right, okay. I mean, like you said, when people would call or email and you're explaining it to them, they're like, fine, but how many people didn't take the time to call or email and are just pissed off, but they won't actually take the time to do that. So I really think you guys need to do a little bit more of addressing what was the behind this and what the real benefits were and why. So.
And I, if I could just address that, I think we still have time. Because remember, this isn't till May. What caused the firestorm was our sending out the cards and letting people know. So I think we can do a much better job of explaining it and telling our story. Because as Trustee Parr just pointed out, he, when people, I mean, like you say, you didn't hear the calls we got with the, oh, is that already over? Why do you have to do it on the weekends? We get a lot of those calls before we came up with this. So I think if we can do a better job of putting that out there, maybe people will understand.
All right. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Lorelei.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to our proclamation for this evening. National Agricultural Day, March 19th. I've asked Mayor Pro Tem Cartwright to read the proclamation.
Proclamation, National Agriculture Day, March 19th, 2024. Whereas the Agricultural Council of America, ACA, announced March 19th, 2024 will be National Agriculture Day with the theme of Agriculture, Growing a Climate for Tomorrow. Whereas agriculture provides almost everything we eat, use, and wear on a daily basis. And whereas we recognize the invaluable contributions of American farmers, farm workers, ranchers, fishers, foresters, and other agricultural workers who have practiced their craft for generations and touch lives of Americans every day. And whereas America's agricultural workers serve as stewards of the land, ensure the safety of health of animals, plants, and people, and strengthen our rural communities with economic opportunities. And whereas the town of Mead supports our local agricultural community that creates jobs, boosts our local economy, and preserves our community. Now, therefore, Colleen Whitlow, Mayor of the town of Mead, does hereby proclaim March 19th, 2024 as National Agriculture Day and encourages all residents to support our agricultural community and their contributions to our economy. Given under her hand and seal, the town of Mead, Colorado, on this 11th day of March, 2024.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the signing of this proclamation in celebrating our farmers who have founded Mead and in this area?
I motion to approve.
Second?
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Trustee Harris,
Yes.
trustee Shranz,
Yes.
trustee Broadhead,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cartwright,
Yes.
trustee Parr,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you for reading the proclamation. Next, we'll have our first public comment. The board welcomes public comment for any item on the agenda. We will take comments about items not on the agenda during the second public comment, item number 10. The board will listen to your comments and take them into consideration. If you desire conversation, please email the board or the town manager or attend the monthly coffee with the mayor. If you wish to speak during this public comment period, please adhere to the town's jail guidelines. Please start by stating your name, your address for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the Board of Trustees. If you are representing a group, you will have 5 minutes. If there's somebody in the room that would like to address the board, please come to the podium. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda contains items which are considered routine and are approved with one motion and vote. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Second?
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mary.
Trustee Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cartwright,
Yes.
trustee Parr,
Yes.
trustee Adams,
Yes.
trustee Broadhead,
Yes.
trustee Shranz,
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. Thank you very much. Motion carries on our consent agenda. Thank you, staff, for putting this together for us tonight. Since we have no further general business, this brings us to our second regular public comment period for tonight. The comment period is for the item for any item, whether it's on the agenda or not. All of the other guidelines previously stated apply. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to comment at this time on any agenda, any agenda item or not? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our legislative update by our town attorney. Marcus, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees. So at this point, the legislature is about halfway through its 120-day session. It convened on January 10th and is scheduled to end on May 8th this year. What I'd like to do tonight is, I mean, there's hundreds of pieces of legislation that have been introduced at this point, but I'd like to focus on 4. So the first one is the Transit-Oriented Communities Bill, which I've mentioned at previous meetings. This is House Bill 241313. Just to let you know the latest status on that bill, it did pass out of the House Committee on Transportation, Housing, and Local Government on March 6th. Which was last week, and it's been referred as amended to the Finance Committee. CML testified in an opposed position to this bill, and just as a reminder, what this bill proposes to do, it mandates rezoning of certain areas around transit centers or defined as rail and bus transit corridors by local governments that are located within the boundaries of a metropolitan planning organization or MPO. It requires jurisdictions to establish a housing opportunity goal, which is calculated by multiplying the land area within those transit corridor areas by a density of 40 units per acre. Municipalities are then obligated to meet that goal through forced rezoning and an array of other requirements. If a community fails to rezone territory, change local laws, and fund affordability and anti-displacement strategies to the state's satisfaction, the state has the ability in the bill as currently drafted to withhold the Highway Users Tax Fund, or HUTF, revenues. Additionally, in the current draft of the bill, the Department of Local Affairs, or DOLA, has the authority to seek an injunction against any jurisdiction that does not comply with the requirements of the bill. Now, there's not a lot of good news in this proposed legislation other than for the town of Mead, because right now, in order for the requirements of this bill to apply, you have to satisfy 3 criteria. You have to have a population of 4,000 or more. You have to be located within the boundaries of an MPO, which you are. You're within the DRCOG boundaries, and you have to have at least 75 acres of transit-related area. So on that 3rd criteria, as far as I know, you currently do not meet that 3rd criterion. But this is something that we're going to continue to monitor, because those criteria very likely may shift as this bill continues to work its way through the legislature. Skipping down to the second bill that I'd like to talk about tonight, this is House Bill 24-1304. This is a bill that is designed to eliminate minimum parking requirements. This was introduced on February 14th, and this one also passed out of committee last week on March 5th and has been referred to appropriations. This applies to all cities and towns and counties, but not cities and counties. So Denver and Broomfield apparently are exempt from the requirements of this legislation. So what this bill says is that on and after January 1 of 2025, a municipality shall neither enact nor enforce local laws that establish a minimum parking requirement for any real property within its boundaries. But this proposed legislation goes on to say the town may adopt maximum parking requirements for land uses, and you may adopt minimum parking requirements for bikes. You may also require through code amendments that owners of parking spaces charge for the use of the space, or that all parking spaces allow for vehicle charging stations. So, and I have if anybody would like to see the latest draft of this, I'm happy to email that to any of you. The first about 7 or 8 pages of the bill reference numerous studies to make the case that there is an extraterritorial impact when local governments enact land use decisions that require parking minimums. So what a lot of these studies are focused on in the bill is that they're asserting that most developments right now in Colorado are overparked, that parking equals a waste of space, that households that have constrained offsite parking drive fewer miles, the argument being that if it's harder to get to my car, I don't use my car as much. That vehicle traffic contributes to air pollution, and that the Denver metro area and the North Front Range are in a severe non-attainment zone for ozone and ground level ozone. So the other interesting thing is that this proposed legislation goes on to say that the issue of minimum parking requirements is not a local land use issue, but it's a matter of mixed statewide and local concern. And the reason that they have that legislative finding in the proposed bill is that this bill will also apply to home rule municipalities. The bill also includes mandatory reporting requirements on and after June 30th of 2025 and every 3 years thereafter. So again, essentially what this bill says is that you can't have any minimum parking requirements for residential or commercial developments within your jurisdiction.
It's easier just to tell people you can have 2 cars. Mandate that.
Right. So the third, and really the reason I'm focusing on these 4 bills is really these are 4 that I think that ultimately the town board may decide that you want to take an official stance on. During previous legislative sessions, we've had letters that have gone to the sponsors, or we've ultimately put a resolution in front of the board for consideration of either a support or opposed position. So the third bill is that I want to bring to your attention is equal access to public meetings. This is House Bill 24-1168. This was introduced on January 31st. And it has been assigned to the House Committee on Transportation, Housing, and Local Government, has not yet been heard in committee, scheduled to be heard in committee for the first time on Wednesday, March 20th. So quick summary of this bill. This would apply to all state and local public bodies and would require that any public meeting at which public business is discussed has to be live streamed in video or audio that is recorded and fully accessible to individuals with disabilities. So this could mean that all meetings of the town, for example, have to be closed captioned to be accessible to people who are deaf or hard of hearing, and require speakers to describe any exhibit that is pulled up on the screen to describe as they go for those that are blind or have any sort of vision impairment. The bill also requires any public body to post on its website at least 24 hours before a meeting any document that will be distributed or discussed during the meeting. And the bill also will require all local governments and the state government to allow participants to participate in the meeting via a video conferencing platform. I think that last point is somewhat problematic. Because as you know, there have been an increasing number of instances in the state where folks have been Zoom bombing meetings with anti-Semitic comments. You all recently made a change to your public comment procedures in order to make it more difficult for that to occur here. This bill would potentially make it easier to do that. And then also, with respect to the requirement to potentially have to close caption every meeting, you're looking at a fairly significant cost impact, I think, to the town to actually adopt that technology if that becomes a requirement. And right now, this bill does not provide any funding for local governments to comply with those requirements. The last bill that I'd like to mention tonight is the accessory dwelling unit or ADU bill. This is House Bill 24-1152. I've mentioned this at past regular meetings. This was introduced on January 30th, passed out of committee on February 27th. CML staff did testify in opposition to the ADU bill and was joined by a number of CML members, including Arvada, Denver, Castle Rock, Cherry Hills Village, Centennial, Avon, Sheridan, Windsor. All of these local governments testified in opposition to the bill, but it was passed out of committee. So this bill would mandate that any jurisdiction in Colorado with a population of over 1,000 that is also located within the boundaries of an MPO, which you are. This would require that an ADU or an accessory dwelling unit be allowed as a use by right on any property that is zoned for a single family home. And ADUs would have to be approved or denied through an objective administrative process that does not require a public hearing or a decision by the public body. So again, CML is definitely in a opposed position to this because it imposes, in their view, top-down residential zoning standards on municipalities that are located within a MPO. So maybe I'll stop there and see if there's any questions on those four, or if there's any that you think you may want to ultimately take a position on. And Mayor, I don't know if you have any comments on those, because I know you've been kind of following those through the policy committee as well.
Well, the policy committee will again be coming together on Friday again. So this has with additional bills on the table. And the State House report just came out, 6:06 tonight. So I don't have anything to go back on or find anything new compared to what you said. But I do think that these four are pretty important to the town of Mead, that we take, at least we have a discussion on it. Herman?
The first one you mentioned, House Bill 1313, the TRO, the transportation bill. Transportation centers, does that include park and rides?
I think that a park and ride would count toward that 75 acre requirement. So if you have it,
Or would qualify?
yes.
Because we have a couple of park and rides already, don't we? We have one here on 66 and.
I don't think it's 75 acres, but
No, it's not, but any
Right.
additional.
well, I know we have,
Because I don't know what's in the plan with the expansion of the I-25. I don't know if they're going to add any more park and rides along there like they did from here north.
Well, I know of no plans to add any more to Mead, but I'm not sure. I'd like to look at the definition of transit-oriented community because they have a list of all the communities that are, and one of them is Firestone. Firestone added that via, and they have a few different things, but not a lot of physical facilities. I think the trigger is if you have any transit, the roads they drive on is considered part of that infrastructure, but let us take a look at that because I was surprised at some of the communities that got included as transit-oriented communities.
Okay.
But at this point, there's no additional park and rides that are anticipated in our segment.
that we know of, Tricia.
So I just wanted to say that I was scrolling through Facebook the other day and an ad came up saying, new laws passed in Colorado allow an accessory dwelling. Contact us for a free quote. I was like, what? They're already advertising that this is a done deal and having people contact them about throwing an accessory dwelling unit on their property. And I was floored.
Yep.
So we better be careful about if people are starting to contact us at all saying, hey, I read this.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But yeah, it said new laws passed allow accessory dwelling units. And had pictures of little units that they could throw on their property. So just an FYI, it's already getting out there that it's a possibility. So just wanted to say that.
So last year they had, I can't remember that if it was a House bill or Senate bill, but it was 213. So you take that bill, which is horrendous, and you take the same text and you bring it into these three TOC, the ADU and the parking. It's the same thing. Same thing. They're going down. So, I mean, I would like to have a discussion or something that we monitor these three at least and the public meeting, which is going to cost us an arm and a leg in the future if it passes. I know I read that they had a fiscal note for the public meeting one, but it's only for the state. It's over $1 million. So can you imagine how much it's going to cost us to do this? So I don't know how the rest of the board is, but I would like to at least discuss some kind of a letter or opposition of a resolution for at least the three that we were talking about that was encompassed in 213 last year.
You favor that? Because
Yeah.
I'm here then.
Yeah, I don't agree with
Okay.
that either.
Any of these.
Yeah,
I don't
all
know
of
what
those
they're trying to
negatively
do with
impact us. Yeah.
Yeah.
What they're trying to address. I mean, the parking thing, I could just picture cars everywhere on the streets.
Yeah.
You know, geez.
Whole idea.
Yeah, who the hell's gonna
Okay.
monitor and manage that?
So I would suggest that we continue to monitor these four bills. When it comes to the date of certain, to go back on, to have a resolution that we can at least talk about at the next meeting. If something should happen between now and then, we can always pull it, but at least we can have some kind of backing and maybe there's a letter to CML in support of what they're doing too on behalf of all of our local. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because I know that some of them, I think the ADU is not up for a committee until the 20th, but that still leaves time. In how many days did they start to do 213? Was a 24-hour turnaround? So, I mean, that's my suggestion that we at least take a look at writing some resolutions in opposed to these four. I don't know if it's going to be one resolution or whatever, but I think we still need to at least state for the record that the town of Mead is opposed to these 4.
Mayor, if I may, I wanted to comment about the third one or the second one, the one Marcus talked about public access. If you guys have been reading my weekly updates, we had like 3 weeks of just unbelievable internet issues here, which we're trying to resolve. But imagine the communities around Colorado that might have unstable internet. You couldn't fulfill that requirement of having closed caption and everything transmitted electronically because just because of the internet alone, not to mention the other costs. But one other thing about public access, and I just, it's on the top of my mind because I don't know if any of you have read about what happened at Fort Collins at their meeting last Tuesday, where they had 3 ladies who glued their hands to the walls. Yeah. And so for 6, well, and she did, the mayor did, but for 3 successive meetings, they've had like 100 protesters come into their chambers because they're wanting the council to pass a resolution about a ceasefire in Gaza. And so the board has said, hey, we're a local government. At any rate, it's getting worse and worse. And so the last week they came in, they wouldn't be quiet when the mayor said, hey, we'll have order in the court. They refused to. So she adjourned the meeting and then the 3 ladies glued themselves to the wall. So they were there for a while. Then long story short, they got unglued. But when we start legislating the way public meetings are going to be held, they better be careful because they've got to solve this problem in Fort Collins. This is a clear and present issue. They ended the meeting and had no meeting, but they have business to take care of. So when the state starts mandating how you're going to run a meeting, I welcome them to come to Fort Collins and figure out how they're going to solve that, or the Zoom bombing. So it seems like local meetings need local solutions. Just a thought.
Do for Fort Collins to call for a ceasefire. That is just mind boggling. Why
and-
they're going there and demanding that is insane.
Well, and they chanted for at least 20 minutes.
But they're not the only community doing it.
Yeah.
Lakewood had the same problem. Aurora had the same problem.
Still means nothing.
It's
Yeah.
still, yeah, I don't understand.
Lakewood
the
had to
point.
cancel,
Like,
stop
what
their
is-
meetings.
But the important thing is how to get those glued hands off the wall. I asked Chief if they have special,
Have a nice.
like Gorilla gluing glue. It's a thing now. I'm just saying, they do it at basketball games. They glue themselves instantly to the wall.
And then you get a little thing and you saw their hand out and send them on their way.
Yeah, with the chunks of.
With the chunks just glued to their hands. Saying, have a nice drive home.
I come back the next morning and say, are you still here?
All right. Anyway, thanks, Helen, for bringing that up. But I do want to point out in that bill that this is for counties or cities or towns and not Broomfield and Denver.
Yeah.
And one of the sponsors is from Denver. So I'm not sure how this plays out. But I mean, I would suggest that we do that for our next meeting is to closely I will, but I know you will too, Marcus. But I think for the matter of the board of setting some kind of tone that we oppose these 4. And there may be something new coming up by then. So propose.
I'll start drafting some resolutions, and at least then maybe the drafts can be taken a look at, and I would suggest that we do them separately, because if one of them ends up getting killed in the Finance or Appropriations Committee, then I think having them separate, we can kind of then decide thumbs up or thumbs down on each individual resolution. So I'll start working on that.
Is there any other things for Marcus tonight?
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
My understanding is HOAs can be more controlling than the environment that they're set in. So if a town is not allowed to set boundaries, could the HOA set boundaries? For example, how many cars you can park on the street? I'm not sure if that's addressed. I kind of scanned through it, but I'm just curious because if you're going to put another house in your backyard and I know the HOA says you can't stop that. Can you stop people from having cars and parking in their and they're on the streets.
Well, I think that the answer is, it depends. But I think that if an HOA, it has covenants that would prohibit, parking in certain areas, it probably would have to be a community that has private, where the streets are maintained by the HOA. I think that would give them, an added layer of control, there. In its current form, this no parking, minimum bill does not address, HOAs.
Covenant
in
control.
in the current draft. But I think that, yes, I think if an HOA wanted to impose a requirement, it would have to be done through a covenant, right, in the community,
Yeah.
where that's being analyzed through the design committee and whatnot. But it's unrelated to the town's review and approval process.
And just to continue, would that apply? I know it specifically says something about local, I want to say covenant controlled for the ADUs. But my question on that is, could the HOA put in boundaries? For example, I probably have a big enough backyard to put a building in. But it would, if I put in a decent sized building that had 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a bathroom, all the things that are required or allowed to be put in, it probably would be too close to the back fence and would probably be over the easement for the property. I could fit it, but it would be pretty close. In that case, would the town be able to say, wait a minute, that's in our easement and you can't put a building on the easement? I think that's really my big question.
Well, I think that the EDU would have to be, this isn't saying that the town can't have any regulations on ADUs. It
Yeah.
just has to be permitted in a residential single family zone.
Okay.
But it would still have to meet applicable setback requirements, or wouldn't be able to be, you can't build a structure on an existing easement.
Okay. That was, I think that's really where I was going, is I'm sure that could the town matrix an easement across everybody's property? It's a simple way to prevent any of this stuff from having effect. If that's what you're saying is a true. I mean, we have the right to put easements in places for things that may happen in the future. Is that true?
Well, the easement, well, yes, but the easement has to be granted by the property owner.
Okay. So in that case, we'd be basically defeating ourselves. I was just curious about, how those things would work, because I don't think there's anything in that bill from what I read that would stop you from being able to put one just in a backyard, even if there's an easement. It's the way it's written. It's like, it has to be 5 feet from a property line. That's about the only restriction I saw in there. So I'm curious how they're gonna get around that one, or if they're gonna try and get around it.
Well, they're gonna do zoning issue, because that's, all properties have setbacks. You can only build building around certain setbacks. Here you got 15 feet from the back and 25 feet from the front.
Sure.
That doesn't leave you a whole lot of room. But I think what the bill is trying to say is that they're gonna rezone all that so you can take away those setbacks.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna be butting up. But my question is, did anybody have any idea what they're trying to accomplish by ADUs? What they're.
It's housing, it's
Affordable.
Yeah.
How is it affordable? If I have to build an ADU, it's gonna cost me at least 300 grand to build one.
But they're gonna give you a grant for it.
For 300,
Right.
Yeah, that's in the bill too.
for all of that?
Yeah,
For
they're
the
gonna,
cost?
they're gonna give you low rate interest loans and grants.
Why don't we just do that with housing?
I don't know, why don't we just buy 40 acres and put 25 of the 50 of these homes up in a 40-acre spot and say it's cheaper than giving everybody grants.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't want to get too off subject, but I was curious how
Well, it is-
easements
it's- I
are
mean,
gonna
I think
work.
that's a subject that's going to challenge us.
Yeah.
If
I
that
do.
passes,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a challenge for me.
There's a lot of farmland out there.
Yes. You know, and there's a lot of people who think they're gonna make a lot of money at doing it,
Yep.
and they're not.
No, no.
And it's gonna cause a whole bunch of other problems
Yeah,
that we'll have to deal with. So
I think we definitely
yeah, we
strongly oppose it.
should kill this thing. It kills us.
Anything else for you two,
Thank you.
for Marcus?
No, so-
Okay. Anything else, Marcus?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Stay tuned, guys. All right. All right, moving along. Elected official reports. Any town trustees have any reports to bring up? Tab.
I was at senior lunch on Thursday and there was a lady there making comments that the town had turned down Safeway and King Supers. That we have all this traffic going down 66. And I was talking to a friend of mine. I says, that's a bunch of crap. So, but she was telling it to all these seniors. Well, I'm a senior too, but I was sort of eavesdropping. But yeah. And I said, I mean, I didn't go up to her and tell her, you know, that it was crap, but I almost did, you know, but
Not necessarily say it's crap.
That's how we
That's misinformation,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. And I don't know where she got this from.
Well, I can address it. I'm going to attend senior lunch on the 20th or the next Thursday, 21st. So I can bring up the King Supers that never was. I mean, not that I'm aware of. Have we turned down or has anybody contacted us about either one? And Safeway and King Supers are about to be one, so.
Yeah, I won't be there. I'll be on my way back from Arizona, so I won't get to be there.
Well, I'll pass along what they say.
Yeah. And yeah, you can update them on, you know, grocery stores in the area. But yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone? All right. I just wanted to say thank you to staff for promoting this little event that we had this weekend. We welcomed Marine Corporal Zachary Dinsmore to the town of Mead with the Homes for Heroes ceremony, and it was very, very well attended. I read, and the gentleman from the Times Call was there, and he said there was 50 people in the room. There was probably more than 200 of them in the room. So thank you, Chief. Thank you to the officers. Thank you, Daniel, that was there, for escorting this gentleman and his family and all the riders too. It was very emotional, and thank you very much for letting me speak on behalf of the town of Mead. I just really appreciate being there, and it was very touching, and I had forgot my Kleenex. So, and I just wanted to point out to those who are online and those who are in the room that we work really hard on getting information out to these folks who live here in our surrounding area. We have a town manager report, we have the Mead Messenger, we have the mayor report, we have a monthly Mead police activity report. We try to do as much as we can to get this information out. If you see something online, please get it out to the folks that you know. We put a lot of time into this, and I think that, you know, the more information that we get out to people and the avenues that people can get to, I think it's important that people have the correct information that as you spoke of, in a timely manner. So twice a week, we do the town manager. Once a month, we do the Mead Messenger. Once a month, we do the Mead report, and twice a month, we do the police. So if you see somebody you encounter, ask them where they found that information, and get it to Lorelei, you know, because if anybody thinks that we have a King Supers coming, get it to Lorelei and Helen, because I'm sure we'll be anxious. But that's all I have tonight.
Coffee with the mayor.
And coffee with the mayor once a month, right? We have a good time, right, Dawn? Lee and Karen? All right. And Mary makes the best coffee. And we have donuts too. So anyway, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Shrans.
Yes.
Trustee Broadhead.
Yes.
Trustee Parr.
Yes.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Adams.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cartwright.
Yes.
Mayor Whitlow.
Yes. The March 11th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, it is adjourned at 7:14. Chief, thank you very much for getting the Life Awards tonight. We appreciate the officers and all of their sacrifice and service. And on the staff, thank you very much for being here and doing what you do on a daily thing here. So thank you, Marcus. Thank you for being here tonight with us. All right. With that, we're gone. Have a good night.
Chris, did you see what, I mean, the one?
Yes.
Just got out.
Yeah.